The dense jungle of Vatara felt alive with every step Kael Thorvold took. His boots sank into the soft, damp soil, and the air was thick with the scent of wet foliage and alien blooms. The distant sound of creatures calling to each other echoed through the trees, an ominous reminder of how far he was from the safety of the starships. Yet, Kael remained unfazed. He'd been to dozens of hostile planets, had fought against entire armies, and survived where others had fallen. The mission was simple: retrieve the artifact hidden somewhere on this jungle planet, a relic from an ancient civilization that could change the course of galactic history. What he didn't expect, however, was the primitive, violent tribe that controlled the region. The Ravenous Tribe. Word of their brutality had spread across the galaxy: fierce warriors, ruthless predators who thrived on bloodshed. Many who had ventured into their territory didn't return, and the ones who did were never the same. But Kael wasn't afraid. He had a reputation of his own, one built on survival against impossible odds. The Ravenous Tribe, for all their savagery, were just another challenge. He moved deeper into the jungle, eyes scanning the treetops for any sign of danger, but the forest seemed to hold its breath. The air grew still, and then, out of nowhere, the ground rumbled beneath him. A rustle in the trees. A shadow flitting between the branches. Kael's hand instinctively went to the weapon at his side, a pulse rifle, state-of-the-art, made for situations exactly like this. His training kicked in, and he crouched low, blending into the thick underbrush. Seconds passed, then minutes, and the jungle was silent again. Too silent. A flash of movement. Then another. They were here. Before he could react, figures dropped from the trees, surrounding him. Tall, lithe, with dark, mottled skin, their eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. Their bodies were adorned with crude armor made from the bones of the creatures they killed, fearsome and unyielding. The Ravenous Tribe. Kael barely had time to reach for his rifle when a sharp crack sounded behind him, and a blow landed on his skull. The world spun, then went black. When Kael came to, he found himself bound by thick, vine-like ropes, his arms pulled above his head. His pulse rifle was nowhere in sight. His head ached, a dull throb, but he pushed it aside. He'd been captured before, many times in many places, but this felt different. The atmosphere was tense, charged with something more primal. A fire crackled nearby, and Kael could see the flickering shadows of the tribe around him. There were no other prisoners, no cries of fear. Just the sharp, unblinking stares of the warriors who surrounded him. One of them, taller than the rest, and with a commanding presence, stepped forward. Her eyes, vibrant, intense, and sharp, locked onto him. "You are far from your kind," she said, her voice low but strong. It was not a question, but a statement. Her tone dripped with authority. Kael lifted his head, meeting her gaze. She wasn't just any warrior. She was their leader. He'd heard the stories. Varyssa Thraak, the one who had led the Ravenous Tribe to unimaginable victories. She was feared and respected across the galaxy. To cross her was to invite death. "Name's Kael Thorvold," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not here to fight you. I came for something that belongs to everyone." Varyssa's lips curled into a half-smile, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "You think your words can stop the inevitable? You're in our territory now, human. You've trespassed. That is all. I don't want your territory. I just need information. The artifact you guard." Kael paused, considering his next words carefully. "It's important. To everyone." The tribe shifted, exchanging glances, murmurs growing louder. They didn't speak the same language, but Kael had learned enough of their dialect to understand that they saw him as a threat, an intruder. But it was her response he was waiting for. Varyssa stared down at him for a long moment, assessing, weighing his words. She stepped closer, her presence like a storm approaching. "You're bold for a human. Most of your kind would be begging for mercy by now." "I don't beg," Kael replied, voice firm. "And mercy isn't why I'm here." Varyssa's lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes flicked to the warriors behind her, then back to Kael. "You are fortunate. I could have your throat torn out with a single gesture. You will not speak of mercy here. You will speak of what you want, and if it pleases me, I will consider it." Kael met her gaze without flinching. "I want to make an alliance. Not just for me, but for your people as well. I know you've been fighting, killing, surviving. But there's a bigger war out there. One that's already on its way." Varyssa's expression darkened, but she didn't break eye contact. "Your words are meaningless. You think we fear your war? You're no different from the others who tried and failed." "I'm not like the others," Kael said, his voice dropping slightly. "I'm offering a way out. A way to stop this endless cycle of violence. The artifact I seek, it's not just a weapon. It's a key. And with it, we can all survive. Together." For a moment, Varyssa didn't respond. The only sound was the crackling of the fire. Kael could see her mind working, calculating. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but tinged with an edge. "One chance. One. If you fail, I will personally watch as your life ends." Kael nodded, feeling the weight of her words. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future. His future. And the future of humanity. If he was to succeed, he needed her on his side. But first, he had to earn her trust. And that, Kael knew, was going to be the hardest part of all. The morning sun barely pierced the thick canopy above, casting the jungle in a dim, oppressive glow. Kael sat on a crude wooden bench, his wrists still bound by the thick vines of the Ravenous Tribe. His head ached from the blow, but his mind was sharp, calculating. He could hear the rhythmic beating of war drums in the distance, signaling preparations for the tribe's next raid. The sounds of the jungle, chirping insects, the rustle of unseen creatures, were drowned out by the thunderous drumbeats, underscoring the tension that hung in the air. Varyssa Thraak, the tribe's leader, had left him in a temporary holding area. She had promised to return and hear him out, but Kael knew better than to expect anything without a price. The Ravenous Tribe wasn't known for diplomacy. They were known for savagery. She had already shown him what she was capable of when she had captured him, and Kael had no illusions about her ruthlessness. But Kael wasn't like the others who had stumbled into their territory, desperate and fearful. He wasn't here for conquest or gold. He was here for the artifact, a piece of technology far older than anything the Ravenous Tribe could fathom. A piece of technology that, in the wrong hands, could doom them all. Footsteps echoed on the hard-packed earth, and Kael's gaze snapped to the entrance of the clearing. Varyssa appeared, flanked by two of her most trusted warriors. Her eyes met his, her expression unreadable. "You've had time to think," she said, her voice low but authoritative. "Do you still believe your words hold any value in this place?" Kael held her gaze, the weight of her stare almost palpable. "I believe what I said yesterday. Your people are strong, but you're at a crossroads. You can continue to fight, continue to survive by violence and fear, but that will only lead to destruction. Or you can choose to fight together. I'm offering you a chance to change your future." Varyssa's lips curled slightly. "Change? You come here, a lone human, and offer me change? You don't understand my people. We have lived by bloodshed for centuries. You cannot simply ask us to abandon everything we are." Kael remained calm, his eyes never wavering. "I'm not asking you to abandon anything. I'm asking you to look beyond the surface. The artifact I came for, it's a weapon, yes, but it's also a tool. It can protect your people, give you the power to defend yourselves without needing to conquer others. Isn't that what you really want?" To stop being prey to the galaxy's predators? The silence between them was thick with unspoken thoughts. Varyssa looked at him, her expression still unreadable, before turning away. What you offer is not so simple, human. We have survived this way for generations. I am not a fool. I know what the artifact can do. But our ways are not easily changed. Kael leaned forward slightly. Then why have you hesitated? Why have you not killed me like you've done to every other intruder? Because you're starting to see the truth in what I'm saying. You know the galaxy is changing. The old ways won't hold up forever. Varyssa spun on her heel, her armor clinking as she moved. You are bold, human. I will give you that. But boldness does not win wars. You speak of alliances, of peace, but you don't understand what it takes to survive. You don't understand the need for strength. Kael's voice dropped, a trace of steel slipping into it. I understand strength. I've been to places where strength meant survival, but I've seen it break people. I've seen it tear worlds apart. What you call strength is nothing but a cycle of bloodshed. One that will end in your extinction if you don't change course. Varyssa stared at him, her eyes narrowing. She was silent for a long time, and Kael could feel the weight of her thoughts pressing on him, but he didn't break his gaze. This was a delicate dance. One wrong move, and he would be dead. But if he could make her see it, truly see it, maybe he could break through the walls of tradition that kept her from considering a different way. You think too highly of your people, she finally said, her voice soft but dangerous. Humanity has its own flaws. I've seen it. I've fought it. You may have come here to offer an alliance, but what you're really offering is weakness. Kael shook his head, the movement slow but deliberate. Strength is not about what you can destroy. It's about what you can protect. You want to protect your people, Varyssa. I can see it in your eyes. But you're not protecting them. You're feeding them to the fire, watching them burn, hoping they come out stronger. But all you're left with is ashes. The words seemed to hang in the air for a long moment. Varyssa's jaw tightened, and her gaze flickered to the warriors behind her. Kael felt the tension rise, but he didn't flinch. Finally, Varyssa spoke again, her voice low and almost reflective. And what do you propose, human? That I let you take the artifact and return to your kind? That I trust you to lead us to peace? Kael straightened. No. I don't expect you to trust me. But I expect you to trust the future. We don't have much time. An enemy fleet is on its way to Varyssa. If we don't act together, we'll both be wiped out. This is bigger than your tribe, bigger than humanity. This is about the survival of everyone. I can help you. Together, we can fight this enemy. But only if you're willing to listen. Varyssa looked at him, her eyes searching. I've heard many promises. And I've seen many humans fall short of their words. What makes you think you will be different? Kael's answer was simple, and it was the truth. Because I know the cost of failure. I've seen it in the eyes of the people I've lost. I won't fail you. There was a long pause, the silence stretching as Varyssa weighed his words. The drums of war continued in the distance, but in this moment, they seemed far away, drowned out by the tension between the two of them. Finally, Varyssa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. One chance, human. One chance, and if you fail, I will make sure your bones are buried on this planet. Kael nodded. It wasn't the alliance he had hoped for, but it was something. It was a start. He stood slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. I won't fail you. Varyssa turned, her warriors following her, but not before she cast one last glance at Kael. The silent challenge in her eyes told him everything. The game had only just begun. The air was thick with anticipation as Kael and Varyssa stood on the precipice of the ancient cliff that overlooked the jungle below. The evening sun was setting behind them, casting a fiery glow over the dense canopy. The horizon stretched endlessly, a mixture of firelight and the darkening shadows of a world on the brink of change. Kael didn't take his eyes off the horizon. Every second that passed, every beat of the war drums from the tribe's stronghold, brought them closer to the inevitable, the invasion. The fleet was coming. Varyssa stood beside him, her posture rigid, her eyes searching the skies above. Her expression was unreadable, the weight of her decision weighing heavily on her. She had agreed to this alliance, albeit reluctantly, but there was no mistaking the hesitation in her movements. She wasn't sure if this was the right path, or if Kael had anything but a fleeting hope to offer. "You've had your chance, human," she said, her voice low but firm. "You've promised us a way forward, but the enemy does not care for promises. They care for blood, and they will not stop until we are all dead." Kael turned his gaze to her, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "Blood has always been your answer, Varyssa, and it's gotten you nowhere. You've built a kingdom on death, but that's all it is, dust and ash. I'm offering you something more, something that could change your tribe's future." Varyssa's jaw tightened. "You speak of change, but you've never walked in the shoes of my people. Every scar on my body, every life I've taken, it's because we've had no choice. We fight to survive. You don't understand the price of survival." Kael paused, his words measured. "I've seen the price of survival more times than I care to count. But fighting to survive isn't living. It's just existing. I'm asking you to live differently. You can choose to hold on to the old ways, but at what cost? Your people are dying, Varyssa. And if you keep this up, so will humanity." The silence between them stretched long enough to make Kael's skin prickle. Varyssa's gaze turned to the jungle below, her eyes scanning the darkening landscape as if it held the answers to all the questions she was afraid to ask. "Look at this," she said, gesturing to the wilderness around them. "This is the only life we know. The jungle, the hunt, the bloodshed. It's all we've ever had. And it's all you'll ever have unless you change." Kael replied, his voice steady despite the urgency in his chest. "You want to see a future where your people thrive, don't you? Not just survive, but thrive. You can't keep doing this forever. The galaxy is moving forward. You can either evolve with it, or you can be left behind." Varyssa's eyes flashed with something darker, a mixture of rage and confusion. "You don't understand. The artifact—" Kael cut her off, his voice firm. "The artifact isn't just a weapon. It's a key. It holds knowledge. Knowledge that could save your people, Varyssa. Not just from this invasion, but from every predator that comes next. It's not about winning one battle. It's about securing a future where your tribe has power beyond what you've ever known." She stepped closer, her boots crunching against the dirt. "And you think I'll trust you? After everything my people have endured? You, a human, come to tell me how to lead? How to save my tribe?" "I'm not asking you to trust me," Kael replied, his voice low but unwavering. "I'm asking you to trust what could be. Trust the future. Trust the possibility of something more. I don't have all the answers, but I can promise you this. If we don't fight together, we both lose." Varyssa's gaze softened for the briefest of moments, and Kael saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She was torn. The weight of generations of bloodshed, of her people's traditions, was pulling her in one direction, while Kael's words, the promise of something more, pulled her in another. The sudden roar of engines cut through the tension between them. The distant sky darkened as a fleet of ships appeared on the horizon. Their shapes, sleek and menacing, emerged from the clouds like harbingers of doom. "Too late," Varyssa muttered, her voice laced with resignation. "The invasion has begun." Kael's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the threat, the overwhelming power of the enemy fleet, bearing down on them like a tidal wave. He had known this moment would come, but it didn't make it any easier to face. "We don't have time to waste," Kael said, his voice sharp with urgency. "We need to make a choice now. Fight them on our terms or let them destroy us. Together, we can win this. But it's your choice, Varyssa." She didn't speak immediately. Her eyes locked onto the incoming fleet. The war drums in the distance began to slow, the rhythm changing. The Ravenous Tribe was preparing for battle. But Varyssa wasn't moving. Kael reached for her arm, his grip firm. "Please, Varyssa. You're the key to all of this. Don't let this be the end of everything." For a long moment, Varyssa stared at his hand on her arm, then at the sky above. Kael's pulse quickened as the fleet grew closer. She was his last hope. She had to see it, see that the way forward was their only chance. Finally, Varyssa turned to face him, her eyes no longer cold, but something warmer, something that resembled understanding. "You're right," she said, her voice steady. "We fight together." Kael felt a surge of relief flood through him, but he didn't let his guard down. This was just the beginning. As the first enemy ships began to descend into the atmosphere, Kael and Varyssa made their way toward the command center of the tribe. Varyssa barked orders to her warriors, her voice now filled with the same authority that had made her a legend. The Ravenous Tribe was ready to fight, but this time, it wouldn't be just for survival. This time, they were fighting for something more. The battle had begun. The sky overhead grew darker as the fleet descended, and for the first time, Kael felt a glimmer of hope. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for the future. The earth trembled beneath Kael's feet as the first waves of enemy ships broke through the atmosphere, their engines screeching like 1,000 predatory beasts descending on their prey. The sky, once filled with the fading light of the evening sun, was now painted with the harsh gleam of fire and steel. Enemy fighters circled overhead, their sleek forms cutting through the clouds, leaving trails of smoke in their wake. It was a sight Kael had seen before, destruction coming fast, like a tidal wave, but this time, the stakes were different. This time, they had no choice but to fight back, and together. Kael's pulse raced as he moved alongside Varyssa through the tribe's fortified stronghold. The Ravenous Tribe had mobilized quickly, their warriors donning their bone and leather armor, ready to meet the threat head-on. The battle drums had ceased, replaced by the sound of clashing metal, hurried commands, and the sharp, unmistakable screech of weapons being readied. Varyssa was at the heart of it all. Her presence was undeniable, commanding the respect of every warrior who crossed her path. Even as chaos reigned, her movements were calm, deliberate. She was no longer just the leader of a bloodthirsty tribe. She was the commander of a united front, a leader fighting for the future of her people. "You ready?" Kael asked, his voice low but steady. They had reached the command center, where Varyssa's most trusted warriors were already stationed, preparing their defenses. He watched her for a moment, waiting for her response. Varyssa gave him a sharp nod. "We're ready. We fight. But you know what's at stake. If this fails, if we fall—" "We won't fall," Kael interrupted, his voice filled with certainty. "We have the element of surprise. The artifact is more than just a weapon. It's the key to controlling their fleet. We use it to our advantage, and we'll turn the tide." Varyssa's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer, a faint glimmer of doubt in her eyes. But then she turned to her warriors, barking orders, her voice clear and authoritative. "Prepare the shields. Set the perimeter. The human is right. If we don't act now, we all die. For our tribe. For our future." Kael felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about fighting for a future where the Ravenous Tribe didn't have to live in the shadows of the galaxy, constantly fighting and conquering to survive. This was their moment to break the cycle, to change everything. The first of the enemy ships broke through the clouds with terrifying speed, its weapons charging as it descended toward the tribe's stronghold. The ground shook with the force of its landing, dust and debris swirling in the air. The battle had begun. Varyssa's warriors were already moving, their formation precise, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Kael joined them, his pulse rifle in hand, scanning the sky for any sign of movement. The enemy fighters weren't far behind. He could see them now, descending in perfect formation, their sleek ships glinting like sharks circling their prey. "We need to hit them fast and hard," Kael said, turning to Varyssa. "If we wait too long, they'll be able to regroup and overwhelm us." Varyssa's eyes locked onto his. "We fight now, human. There is no waiting." With a fierce cry, the Ravenous Tribe surged forward, charging at the incoming enemy ships. Kael followed, his heart racing in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins. This wasn't just another skirmish. This was their chance to make history. The first wave of enemy soldiers poured from the ships, their weapons raised, their faces obscured by helmets and masks. But Kael wasn't intimidated. The ravenous warriors surged forward with brutal efficiency, their combat training evident in every movement. Bone weapons clashed with energy shields, and the air was filled with the sound of battle, the cries of warriors, the hum of energy blades, the roar of weapons being discharged. Kael moved through the chaos, his rifle steady in his hands, firing with precision. The enemies fell before him, their armored bodies hitting the ground with dull thuds. But they were relentless. More ships landed, more soldiers poured out. The battle was far from over. "Varyssa!" Kael shouted over the noise, his voice barely audible above the din of combat. "The artifact! We need to use it now, before they overwhelm us." Varyssa was at the front lines, her sword flashing as she cut down an enemy soldier with a single, lethal strike. She didn't answer immediately, her focus entirely on the fight. But Kael saw the slight hesitation in her movements as she glanced toward the artifact chamber, hidden deep within the stronghold. Without another word, she nodded to her second-in-command, who immediately passed the word to the tribe's war mages. The artifact was coming. Kael's heart skipped a beat. He knew this was their chance. The artifact, when activated, would give them the power to control the enemy fleet from the ground. But the danger was immense. If it fell into the wrong hands, or if something went wrong, it could backfire, causing untold destruction. But they had no choice. They had to trust in the technology and in each other. The artifact was brought forward, a glowing sphere of ancient, alien design, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The war mages began chanting in low, guttural tones, their hands raised toward the artifact. Kael's breath caught in his throat. The air around the sphere seemed to vibrate with energy, and the ground beneath them hummed, as if the planet itself was responding to its power. Varyssa stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the artifact. "Do it!" she commanded, her voice unwavering. The mages nodded, their chants growing louder, their movements more intense. The artifact flared with light, sending a shockwave of energy rippling outward. Kael felt the pulse of it in his chest, like a heartbeat syncing with his own. Then, without warning, the sky exploded. A bolt of energy shot up from the artifact, arcing into the heavens, striking the incoming fleet with pinpoint accuracy. The first enemy ship, the one that had landed nearest, erupted in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave spread, engulfing the entire fleet, knocking their ships off course, sending them crashing into the jungle below. Their weapons faltered, their shields flickered. It worked. The tide had turned. Varyssa looked at Kael, her expression one of fierce determination. "Now we finish this." Kael nodded. The battle wasn't over yet, but they had taken the first step. With the artifact in their hands, they now had the power to turn the invaders' strength into their own. The final confrontation had begun, and for the first time, Kael believed they had a chance to win.